Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Therapeutic Wisdom from the AKASH. My name is Laura Mazzotta. I am the Akashic therapist, which means I've been a therapist for almost 20 years and have been integrating spiritual and energetic tools, particularly through the Akashic records, into my work now, which has created the most efficient and effective healing that I have ever experienced, not only individually, but for my clients. I'm going to take a moment to share this out, and I encourage you to do the same. If there's anybody that you think would be interested in this conversation about diagnosis, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, if you guys are new to Awoken TV, you can find Awoken TV at www.awoken.tv. And this is a space that you can find courses, you can find conscious filmmakers, you can find films, obviously, you can find light workers, and other shows that create basically like a spiritual and metaphysical Netflix. So you can also find Awoken TV on the App Store. So I encourage you to do that for ease and convenience so that you can access all the goodness that occurs on this channel. So I just have a couple more places to share this out. Please say hello if you are jumping on live, because I really appreciate interacting with people live and answering your questions and getting feedback about what this brings up for you, this content that we're bringing forward from the Akashic Records. So definitely say hello and where you're tuning in from. If you guys are watching on Emerge Healing and Wellness Facebook page or the Akashic Academy, I'm not going to see your comments live. I will be seeing the live ones if you go over to the Awoken TV page and you comment there. So definitely make sure that you jump over if you have questions that are coming forward while I'm live. Otherwise, if you want to stay put where you are, you can just tag me in the comment, and then I'm happy to check in later and answer your questions. So give me a hi, guys, on the Awoken TV page so that I know you're here, please. I want to make sure that the comments are working, because a lot of times on Facebook, the comments don't work. I'm going to open my phone just in case. Okay, so welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here with me today. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are ready to jump into this weekend, and those of you in the US may have a long weekend this weekend, with Monday being Columbus Day. So I hope everyone is well and that you have lovely plans to look forward to. So, a diagnosis. Hi, Robin. Thank you for saying hello so that I know the comments are working. So, diagnosis. The way that diagnosis is defined is the identification of the nature of an illness or other problem by examining the symptoms. Okay, so this is basically, hi Joe, thanks for saying hello. This is basically what people in the medical community understand as diagnosis. So this can be for physical health or this can be for mental health. It doesn't have to be relegated to one of those. Okay, so what I think is interesting about this definition is they talk about the identification of the nature of an illness, which naturally implies that illness exists on a spectrum, rather than identification of an illness by examining the symptoms. Okay, so every illness has a nature to it. Okay, and everybody's nature is determined based on their own energetic blueprint, their own DNA makeup, and their own experiences that they've integrated into their field. Okay, so we can all express illness in a different way, which I'm sure you've seen either in your own life or with people that you know who have been diagnosed with something. And it's helpful in that when we diagnose symptoms, we get a basic framework, right? We get a basic understanding of how can we approach this in a way that we've known to be effective in the past when we've approached this mix of symptoms. So yes, it can provide some structure and framework for approaching treatment and sometimes saving people's lives. But what I also think is that when we look at the nature of illness being on a spectrum, it leaves diagnosis very subjective, right? And so it's very subjective to the person who is examining it, the examiner of the symptoms. So how many of you, put your hand up in the comments, analyze and examine your symptoms, whether they come up physically or whether they come up emotionally or cognitively? And when I say analyze your symptoms, it means take your ego, take your conscious mind, and you really look into, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and why am I feeling this? And then what could this mean, right? And what could this mean in terms of how your mortality and like how this is going to help me move forward, or whether or not it's going to impact my functioning or interfere with my day to day, right? Where really what we want to do is shift examination and analysis to curiosity. Because when we get symptoms, it provides us with an opportunity. Well, it really provides us with information. It provides us with information about what's going on underneath the surface on an energetic level, on a subconscious level, so that we are illuminated with this information that's not necessarily consciously obvious all of the time. So when we get this information, it's a gift, because we get this little pain in our leg, or we get these really, really extreme mood symptoms or psychotic symptoms. And instead of analyzing what that could mean in terms of diagnosis and our longevity and our prognosis, it's more important to get curious about, what is this coming up for right now at this point in my life? Like, what purpose is this serving? There's a reason that this is showing up in my life right now. And get curious about it and explore it versus examining it and analyzing it. Does that make sense? Do you guys, can you tell the difference between exploring a symptom and its lesson that it's bringing forward for you, rather than examining and analyzing it from an ego perspective? Because when we're exploring it, we get curious, which means we're open-minded, right? We're open-minded and we're allowing ourselves to say, what's around the corner there? And let me get descriptive about this and try to understand it. Rather than analysis and examination is a little bit more narrow-minded. It's a little bit more fixed within diagnostic categories, within the list of things that are listed under a diagnosis that you happen to be handed. Okay, so let me know if that doesn't make sense, and I'm happy to explain it further. All right. So that's the problem, is that people get stuck in this rigid framework, right? It is a framework. It's a guide, just like the Bible is a guide for us, right? But people, when you get stuck in any kind of rigid framework and you don't allow yourself to think outside of that structure, you've lost your flexibility and your flow. And when we're in flow, we are in flow with the universal energy. We're in flow with spirit and what it is that we need to be working toward or putting our intention toward during that day or that week or that month or that year. We operate better when we're in flow, when we lean back and we allow the energy to present itself to us so that we can use this as tools and information to guide our next steps, right? When we get an analytical and examining, right, we get like this. We're looking within a certain framework. Okay. Hi, Donna. Thanks for being here. Hi, Melinda. Okay. So the other part of this diagnosis definition is examining the symptoms. So we just talked about that a little bit, with the difference between exploring and getting curious and examining and analyzing, right? But we also want to look at this one because examination doesn't talk about root cause. Now, you can get there through examining something, but typically what I have found in my experience as a therapist and my own experience with managing and moving through chronic illness is that we get really descriptive about our symptoms and we get distracted. The ego gets distracted. So while you can find the root cause that way, it takes longer. I find it takes a lot longer and it's a lot more laborious and uncomfortable and annoying. So it's better to sit back and really receive with curiosity and open-mindedness. What is this bringing forward for me? What are you trying to communicate with me, universe? What are you trying to communicate with me, spirit? Okay? Because our ego gets distracted, and when our ego gets distracted, then it becomes this happy little circus, right? Where it's all over the place and it takes over. And then it likes to latch onto a diagnosis because then it has an answer and it has a label. And now it has a direct course with specific steps of where I'm supposed to go. So it satisfies our ego beautifully, but it doesn't heal the root cause, right? So we then end up getting trapped in the box, and we get trapped in the rule book, and we get trapped in the rigidity. Okay? And we get stuck on this microcosm. when we examine, when we analyze, which is looking at the specific symptoms and how it fits within our current reality. When we lean back, we get to see the bigger picture. How does this diagnosis fit into my purpose for being here on this planet, my soul's path? Okay? So it's taking that bird's eye view, that helicopter view, and being able to see this diagnosis as a tiny little snippet on the giant timeline of our soul, right? The earth is just one little moment and blip on our radar of our soul's path, okay? So the question is, what is the purpose of this symptom showing up right now, like we talked about earlier? And how do these lessons help you move forward to forward your soul mission on this planet? Because that's what the medical community, the mental health community don't necessarily look at all the time, is how does this fit into the larger picture of what your soul is here to do? I joke about this all the time, that I sit with my clients that I've been with for years, and I know them very well. They trust me. We've done a lot of really good work together, and I give them feedback based on what they're bringing forward. And I say, yes, that makes a lot of sense. That seems to fit in very nicely based on how you perceive the world and based on how you feel and who you are and your environment and all of that. And then we open their Akashic records and we tune into their soul path. And the Akashic records are very clear about, no. Yes, that might make logical sense to the ego and logical sense based on what's unfolded in this person's life so far and where they want to go based on their egoic agenda. But it's not necessarily the best next step on their soul's path. And here is what their purpose is. And here is how you can follow that soul's path and really work in the highest good for all. So that's why combining these two modalities can be so helpful. So one of the questions here is, once you have a symptom that shows up, whether it's, again, emotional or physical, once you have something that shows up, it shows up because there's messages that you have missed along the way, okay? Because there's multiple layers to our existence. We have our etheric layer, which is closest to our physical body. Then we have our emotional layer, which is a little bit further out from our physical body and next to the etheric layer. And then we have the mental layer, which is one layer further out than the emotional layer. So what does that tell you? That when information, data, energy, whatever you want to call it, is coming towards us and coming towards our energy field, it is filtered through that mental layer before it gets to the emotional and the etheric. Which means that our minds are literally filtering and interpreting and placing a code on every single piece of energy that is coming into our field. So what does that tell you? You have power is what that tells you. Your thoughts have power, immense power. And our ability to shift our mindset allows us to change and shift and control our emotional and physical experience. That's why there's so many mindset coaches out there, so many mindset mentors, and so much emphasis on affirmations, on shifting from a fixed mindset to a flexible mindset. And you hear these buzzwords all over the place. That's the reason you hear these buzzwords, is because it's going through the mental layer, then the emotional layer, then the etheric layer. So you have multiple filters. Okay, so first, you're going to get it with a thought. You're going to get it with an interpretation or a belief system or a judgment. So if you start to shift that first and foremost, you're going to have much greater control over your experience. This is very preventive work. It's preventive for not turning into negative emotions or discomfort or disappointment that leave us feeling tortured or up and down or on the roller coaster of life or stressed out and not feeling like we're able to get out of it, and then trapped in our emotions. That's when panic attacks occur, dissociation occurs, okay? So then we have the emotion come up. So now we're at a denser level of energy, right? Now that we're feeling the emotion, it's gone through the mental layer, we're now at the emotional layer. So it's a denser level of energy, And if we do not hear that lesson and get curious about what that is here to show us and teach us about moving forward with our soul's path and our soul's purpose, we then shift into the next layer closer to our body, which is the etheric layer. And that's when we start to develop physical symptoms. Okay, so that's what's so, I think, so fascinating and beautiful about this energetic work, is that the more we tune into the tiny little energetic nuances that show up in our field, because there's layers, there's more layers than that, by the way. I'm just not going to go over them all today, but there's layers even beyond the mental layer that you can pick up on. And the more that you train yourself and you practice with energy work and tuning into your actual energetic field, the more you can pick up on these little subtle nuances of change before they enter even the mental layer, before they even get to that point where you've created an interpretation. And that's what's so cool and what makes humans crazy with doing energy work, is that if you're really doing this work deeply and effectively and efficiently, half the time you don't even consciously know what's going on. Like, you have no understanding. You're doing the work and the shifting is occurring, but you're not even getting to that mental layer yet. And so you don't even have a conscious interpretation or judgment of what kind of shifting is occurring. And this makes humans crazy, because it feels like, well, I don't have evidence for that, and I don't have data for that, and I need to have a conscious understanding of what this is doing for me. And I know that's how I felt at the beginning of doing this work. And the only thing that kept me going, other than my soul's tug, because that kept me going, but the other thing that kept me going was the results. It made absolutely no sense to me. I didn't understand any of this. And I just kept going, and I was feeling better, and my energy was higher, and my anxiety was lower, and I was more confident. But it didn't make sense why to me. I didn't necessarily have the concrete answers. So the question for you guys today is, how do you get to know and accept yourself more intimately so that you are in tune with the tiniest nuances of your behavior? And I want you to put that in the comments. Where are you going to tune in today? Where are you going to tune in this week? Are you going to choose to tune into the mental layer and say, okay, I'm going to be very conscious of my interpretations. I'm going to be very conscious of my judgments. I'm going to be very intentional with my thoughts. Start there, or you can start at the emotional layer if you'd like. Or if you have a lot of physical symptoms, tune into the physical symptoms and just start getting curious. But make yourself accountable by typing in the comments, putting into reality, heightening the vibration of your current intention. What are you going to focus on to start getting more in tune with yourself at the microcosm, the tiniest microcosm, so that you can be preventive about emotional and physical wellness? Just going to take a quick sip of water. I remember when I got really sick and I first started on this journey, and I was part of all of these Facebook groups with my diagnosis. And it was super helpful at the beginning because I was getting used to plasma infusions, which I still do every week. And I was getting used to just the different protocols that I was trying to implement to help my physical body at the time. And some things were working and some things weren't. I was very frustrated and very confused. So I ended up getting a lot of, pointers from people who had experienced this diagnosis before, and it was very helpful. But what I found, which made me leave these groups about 6 months later, was how much these people had latched onto their diagnosis as an identity. As part of their self-definition. And they attended so much to the physical symptoms that they were in that analysis and not exploratory, examining stage. And there was so much focus on the physical. We want to look at the physical and say, thanks for showing up. Just like I say to my sepsis, thank you for coming into my life so that you could literally open me up to an entirely new world of experience, and phenomenal. But you look at the physical, you get curious. Oh, okay, thank you for coming up and communicating to me in a language that I can interpret and understand and connect with. And then you sit back with it and you allow the information to come through. One of the best tools for this, which I've mentioned several times before, is Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Body book, because she has a list in the back. And I have literally, I've yet to find one of the things on this list that is not fully accurate for myself or my clients or my loved ones. That when a physical and emotional symptom comes up, she lists the limiting beliefs that exist underneath it that you need to shift and change. So that's one tool. If you are not, if you haven't developed your intuitive skills enough to be able to bring through that information from, say, the Akashic records or meditation or other energetic modalities that you might be tuning into. Okay. So it's attending to the physical symptom, but not sitting in it. And that's what I found, was that the diagnosis allowed people to finally have this sense of belonging and identity. Our belonging is so much bigger than what we connect to on a physical level or on a mental level. We have soul tribes that are existing up there outside the universe that may not be currently incarnated in human bodies. But we always belong, my friends. You guys have a team of guardian angels, of guides, of loved ones who have passed that are following your path, that are supporting you on your path, that are guiding you. You never have to do this alone, ever. So it's practicing that and getting comfortable with that relationship with your guides and with your angels, okay? This is the other thing that I wanted to share with you today. And I noticed this for myself, which I was fairly judgmental about myself when this awareness first came into my field, but I realized that there's a certain amount of, I feel special because I have a diagnosis. And I didn't feel that consciously, but subconsciously, I think that was a part of it for me. As embarrassed as I was to admit that at the time, I was needy. I had a lot of needs that needed to be met. And some of this is because of my human childhood in this lifetime, and some of it is because of my past lives and my ancestors' lives that I was carrying forward for them. But when you think about it, when you get really sick, physically or with mental illness, what happens? You have people come help you. You have people come take care of you. You have access to greater supports. And your inner child loves that shit. Right? Loves getting nurtured and supported and comforted and taken care of. Your inner child eats that up. So it's a huge glaring, hello, reparent yourself. It's important here to get curious about how can I nurture and love and take care of myself on a daily basis that meets these needs, so that I don't need the illness to feel special. I don't need the diagnosis to feel special or to justify. That was the other piece, right? To justify me getting my needs met. And I noticed that as a pattern with me that, again, wasn't conscious, but I'd be like, well, I can't go to that because I don't feel well. But there was part of my soul that really didn't want to go energetically, or I didn't want to get exposed to people who were in that environment, or, I just was feeling like I needed to rest that day and felt like I needed to prove myself or justify myself. So there's a certain amount of people pleasing involved there too with chronic illness. So it's being able to tune in to these nuances of your energy unapologetically, choosing experiences and commitments in your life that serve your energy without having to justify it with all of these physical or emotional symptoms that are coming up for you. Well, I'm unstable, so I can't go. Or I don't feel well, so I can't go. You can also just say, I choose not to go right now. I choose not to go because something else is pulling on me further. Something else is lighting me up more. And that's okay. And I don't have to prove myself to anybody. So diagnosis also provides us with boundaries. It's setting boundaries for people who have trouble setting boundaries. so that you have a reason to set a boundary. Okay, so honoring it in that way. I'm just going to check in on the comments. Deborah, I work on being more mindful of allowing myself to listen to my body more. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Pushing through is quite dangerous. Wow. Yep. Wow. That's powerful, Deborah. Super powerful. And thyroid, did you look up thyroid? And I don't know if you have this book, that You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. But I'm going to look up thyroid for you. Okay, so the thyroid, what it means in terms of the underlying belief system is humiliation. I never get to do what I want to do. When's it going to be my turn? And the affirmation that goes with this is, I move beyond old limitations and now allow myself to express freely and creatively. So it's kind of exploring that at a belief level, with journaling as a journal prompt, or sitting in meditation with it, or asking the Akashic records about it. And Cancer shows up as deep hurt and long-standing resentment, deep secret or grief eating away at the self, carrying hatreds. What's the use? And the affirmation with that is, I lovingly forgive and release all of the past. I choose to fill my world with joy. I love and approve of myself. So it's starting to shift these belief systems and seeing how much other shifting occurs in your energy field when you start that process. And just observing, like Melinda says, she's observing continuously. Good. Yeah, exactly, Deborah. So to be preventive going forward, it's remembering how significant this was for you to turn into thyroid cancer. And if it's that significant, there are several layers to it that you need to continue making an intention to clear on a daily basis, which could mean that you say these affirmations every day. It could mean that you make sure that you do something every single day to clear your energy field, to soothe and nurture your inner child or your physical body or your emotional self. Okay? Our soul and our energetic layer, well, we have a lot of energetic layers, but our soul, our higher self, is unwavering. Unwavering. So as we go through all of these energetic layers that are always moving and shifting, right? All these molecules and atoms that are moving and shifting at all times and always vibrating. As we move through all of these energetic layers, guess what's at the core of it? Our higher self, our soul. And that's unwavering. That's super solid and creates such a beautiful, clear foundation for us. So it's being able to work through these layers to get to the point that we have such an intimate relationship with our higher self, that we're always connected, and that we have access to this wisdom flowing through us at all times, and this energy from the Akash, from the ether, that's so high frequency, it's moving through us at all times, and we're just a channel, and that energy is clearing and cleansing us on a consistent basis. So talk about prevention, because illness cannot exist at a high frequency. Dis-ease cannot exist at a high frequency. Okay, so if you guys want help with working through these layers and getting to know each and every one of these layers and how you can manage your energy at that molecular level, I have a course starting on October 29th called Thrive for people with chronic emotional or physical illness. I'm running it with Daisy Farrell. She's a psychic medium and healer. She also has chronic illness that she's been working through in a very spiritual and energetic way. I have found more relief from these practices than anything else in any of the hundreds of specialists that I've been to over the past 4 years. And I want to help other people move through it with greater ease and efficiency and effectiveness than I did, and then I see other people experiencing. We all have access to this energy. So it's just about learning, how do we tap into it? How do we use it for our own unique soul purpose? Because every single one of us has a different path. And every single one of us has a different way that we need to integrate these messages that show up. Okay, so I'd be happy to support you. There's a link in the description of this video. And I can also drop it in the comments as well. If you guys have any questions on the replay, please feel free to post them in the comments and tag me so that I come back and pay attention to you and am able to meet your needs. If you guys want to catch me here again live, I will be here next Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. I usually post the content of what I'm going to be talking about the day before, because that's when the Akashic Records like to say, this is what the world needs to hear. So let me know if there's anything that's really weighing on your mind or in your field or in your physical body that you could use some guidance on as well. And I'm sure the records will take that into consideration when bringing forward what we need for next week. All right. I love you guys. Don't forget to take a check. I cannot speak. Take a look at Awoken TV, www.awoken.tv, and you can find it on the App Store. Thank you for joining me here on the replay, and I will see you next week. Bye.